Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tia Ramey. I'm a communication strategist that gives communication tips to leaders to help them both personally and professionally. In this video, I wanted to just talk to you about the importance of knowing how to establish your purpose for communicating. Let me tell you why this is important. Sometimes we just start talking, right? Someone comes home and maybe you're in a certain mood and you just start talking and saying how it is that you feel and what's going on with you. And oftentimes that's okay. And we are not always establishing our purpose, but I think that we should. And it is my opinion that you'll get better outcomes when you set people who are listening to you up for success. Oftentimes we find ourselves disappointed or confused or upset when there's a breakdown in communication. But I wanted to give you some tips tonight that will help you improve that process and allow you to make sure that the people who are listening to you understands what the outcomes you want to be. And they're able to deliver those to you in the best way that you need to hear it, so that way you can gain what you need from the conversation and the dialogue. So I talk about this in my book, Canceled: Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World, where there are three things that cause a lot of miscommunication. And when we have these sort of miscommunication breakdowns, what happens is we can create enemies of friends, people who intend to connect with us, they just may not know how. And so I talk about how important it is that we're prepared to have honest dialogue. But guess what? We're really not always in a place where we're ready for honesty. And what I want to talk to you about in this particular video is how to identify whether or not you're really ready to have honest dialogue with another person. And what you have to do first is be honest with yourself about why you're talking. What is it that you want from the conversation? What would be the purpose and the benefit if after this conversation is had, what should they gain and what should you gain from this particular dialogue that you're intending to have? Now, whether you're talking to an employee or you're talking to a loved one and you need to set someone aside, it really does benefit you greatly to be able to say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about something. Then establish what the benefit is to them to listen. I want to talk to you. I really would like to get to know you. I think if I know you a little bit better, then we can work together smoothly. So this way they can understand. And most of the time when we sit down and we have to have difficult dialogue, if they know that the outcome will be beneficial to them, then they're much more likely to hear whatever it is that you have to say. So my first tip is make sure that you establish your intent. Why are we having this conversation? What is the benefit? What is it that you want from the dialogue? Sometimes what happens is we really just want to express ourselves. And that is sometimes when you're not really ready for honest dialogue, it's a great thing to ask yourself. Let's say that we're not necessarily trying to talk to an employee. Let's say that you have a lot on your mind or you have a lot on your heart, and you're doing something that I like to call expressive communication. And that's when you really only want to talk so that you can express your thoughts and your feelings. What is most important before you decide to vent and kind of really just express yourself is that you ask for consent. Oftentimes, we're trying to express our thoughts and our feelings before we properly assess the person that we want to listen to us to see if they're in a good place to even hear what it is that we have to say. It's so important that we take into consideration that these people that we're trying to talk to, they have lives too. Maybe they had a difficult day. Maybe they're not in a good place at this particular time to listen to someone complain or to be burdened by information. So, setting each other up for success, it's so good if you can ask and say, hey, is this a good time? And then let them know in advance. I really need someone to talk to right now. I've got a lot on my mind and I just need a moment to vent. Now, this is something that's very important. If you just want to vent and you don't want to hear any advice, and I say you have to know sometimes when you're talking to leaders or you're talking to loved ones or families, they're always trying to fix it and they're always trying to give advice, but you're not always really ready or in a place where you need advice. You just want to talk and you want to offload whatever's on your mind. Say that up front. It's okay to say that and say, you know what, I really just need time to vent. I've got a lot on my mind. Would you mind hearing me out? I don't really need any advice. I just need to process out loud for a minute. And if you do that, then they will not waste their time giving you unwanted, unnecessary advice that you're not really asking for. So I think it's good to be honest about that up front, very honest about it. So expressive communication is one of those things that causes confusion when someone is venting and they're saying, man, I've got this problem, I have this issue. And then someone gives you advice that you didn't want. You just wanted to vent. Tell people you just want to vent, because it causes so much frustration when you have that particular friend or someone who cares, or maybe they are a problem solver to their core, that gives advice over and over and over again on the same topic, and you don't take any of their advice. Causes a lot of frustration and tension in relationships when someone offers solutions that another person is not willing to listen to. So you need to know in advance whether or not you really even want any solutions, and make sure you let that person know that you do not want them before you start talking, and make sure that they agree to the dialogue. So that's very important. Another thing that causes miscommunication is something that I like to call agreeable communication. This is when you're really only speaking because you want agreement. Sometimes we have a lot of issues that are happening in the world. For example, there's a lot of big topics that people are discussing, and we just want to talk, and we want our points and our opinions and our thoughts to be validated. Now, again, this is another point that really, if you're in this place, you're not really in a place where you want honest dialogue. You know you want honest dialogue when you are really to welcome another perspective, even one that you do not agree with, and you can hear what someone else has to say and value that they may have a differing opinion from yours. And so, if you're in this place where you need agreement, you really don't want honest dialogue, and it's okay to be honest about that up front. Here's a very important point to remember. If you do not want to hear any sort of conflicting points of view, then you need to speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. Speak subjectively and not objectively. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, when you make a point and you say, let's just give something small. You can't say LeBron James is the greatest basketball player in the world. If your goal is to get agreement, that other person may not agree that he is, but you can say, I think that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player in the world. Now, people may not necessarily agree with what you just stated, but they can agree that that is your perspective. They can agree that that is your opinion. So make sure that you do not set yourself up for failure. If you want to talk and you just want someone to agree with you, let people know in advance that I'm looking for someone that maybe has a like mind that I can discuss this topic with. And so, again, this is a give and take. And what happens is, we can make a enemy of a friend when we say something and we're a place that we want agreement, and they say something that they disagree, then it causes an unnecessary argument. So you've got to always first be honest with yourself about why you're talking, and the fact that you really do not want to be challenged, and let people know in advance that that's not where you're coming from, especially right now where things are extremely political. If you do not want a differing opinion, then you might even want to limit your social media activity and comments. That may not be a place for an open forum. You may want to have more of a closed discussion group. Maybe you want to start a group where everyone agrees with you versus putting things out on your broadened page. These are just certain things you can do when you're ready to be honest with yourself about what it is that you need in your process of communicating. Now, here's another tip that I have for you. Another thing that causes a lot of miscommunication, where if you're not really in a place where you want honest dialogue, I call this egocentric communication. Egocentric communication is when someone wants their self or their opinions and thoughts to be validated, usually as it relates to themselves. They want to feel good in the conversation. They want someone to validate and affirm them. And this is a really big deal. It happens all the time. I'll give you a really small example of that, of even the difference in language and how you can set up the listener for success if you need to be affirmed. So, my husband and I, for example, and I don't know why I've messed this up several times, I'll ask him, how do I look? After I've spent 2 hours of getting ready. And he'll say, you look fine. And then I'll go and change my clothes. Well, when he says you look fine, to me, that sounds like you look satisfactory. And I really want to hear him say, you look amazing, you look great, you look fantastic. I wasn't really ready for honest dialogue, right? If I opened up an open-ended question, and if I really don't want to hear him say you look fine, I shouldn't just say, how do I look? So if you are in this place where you're doing egocentric communication, make sure that you do not ask open-ended questions. Make sure that you were honest and vulnerable. I'll tell you what I should ask my husband. Tell me how great I look, because that's really what I want to know. I really want him to say something that is going to affirm me, that is going to make me feel good in those particular moments. And you've got to be honest with yourself about that and make sure that you ask questions that are going to get you the results that you want in the dialogue. And and so sometimes we frustrate ourselves with that process of not necessarily asking the right questions. So again, it's very, very important that we take the time to assess why we're speaking. What is it that we want from this dialogue? And ask the right questions. Ask for consent as well. And make sure that the people that we intend to connect with are in a good place to give us what we need. And make sure that we set them up for success for that as well. Again, thank you so much for tuning into this video. My name is Tia Ramey. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you find this helpful. I've got several other videos that have communication tips and strategies for leaders. Again, you can also purchase my book, Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World. It's called Canceled. You can get it on my website, tiaramey.com. You can also get the audiobook. It is available on Audible. So thank you again for your time tonight. Hopefully you found this to be very helpful and you'll have a great evening.